What's up, legend? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tommy Z from New South Wales, and I've created this channel to share my evolving freediving and spearfishing journey as an absolute noob. It's awesome that there's a lot of content out there of all the cool stuff, but I'm here to share my evolving journey as I get into this sport myself, and hopefully it inspires some of you out there as well. As I'm sure you know, interacting with the content will help me grow, so if you enjoy it or want to see more, chuck a like, comment and subscribe to my channel, or follow me on all other social media platforms. In this video, you'll be joining me on my first cray hunting or cray diving experience, which one of my freediving instructors actually invited me on to go and tag along with them. Now, unfortunately myself, I didn't go pulling a heap of crays out of holes on this day, but I did learn so much and just get a whole lot more comfortable with being in the water, being at these depths. So it's still an absolutely phenomenal experience, inspiring me to get more gear. Let's get into it. Alrighty, it is about 6 AM. We're just down here. One of the legends from my training course has invited me down to come cray diving. Never been before. So I got some pros around to learn from, which is good. Alright, we out here. Come down with one of my instructors from my freediving course. And good? Yeah, all good. And we're just going for some crays. So being invited along, nicely enough. And not going to share their secrets with you, their secret spots. But yeah, hopefully learn a couple things today, and let's go. So as you now know, in Australia we also call our lobsters crayfish, and as you can see on the left hand side for New South Wales, these are the regulations around crayfish. They have a bag and possession limit of 3 per person. Unless you are Aboriginal, then you can have a total of 6. So we've just swum out a little bit, and then now we are getting into the diving. Now with crayfish hunting or diving, whatever you want to call it, it is basically a series of just going up and down and looking in all the little nooks and crannies that you possibly can to try and find a lobster. Your highest chance of finding these guys are in all the little ledges, nooks and crannies, under rocks, in places that you can barely fit your hand, especially if you are hunting in places that are often hunted and in shallow, easy to get to waters. Now, because we are diving in a lot shallower waters than if we were free diving per se, we have added an extra weight on our weight belt, and what this does is it just decreases the amount of energy that you need in order to get on the bottom, as well as holding you on the bottom in shallow water, because you don't need to fight the buoyancy of your wetsuit as much. Now, although we are in shallower waters, cray diving can still be very dangerous because you are going up and down between being on top of the water and below the water. So it is really paramount to make sure that after you go down and you have a look for some crays, that you make sure that you have your surface intervals, which is your time spent above the water, to make sure that you recover enough before going for your next dive to save any mishaps from happening.
Yeah, I can see the antennas. There's some crays in there, eh? I can't tell how big they are though.
Nah, I can't. Fuck it, keep moving.
Yeah.
There's some around, but that's good.
Yeah.
Now here, Jono and Scotty have just found a little crack full of crays, and they are trying to figure out how they can best basically get them out and to make sure there's no escape routes for them, and whether they can use a little bit of teamwork to get these crays out. So they head to the surface to make a plan of attack. In New South Wales, you are not allowed to spear lobster either, so you can only use your bare hands to collect them. So this makes it quite a little bit more difficult, especially when they are deep into some cracks. You can't just stick your gun in there and shoot them. As I learnt very quickly on this day, one of the key pieces of equipment that you need for cray diving is a torch. Most of the places that you're going to find these crays don't have much light getting to them, so you are going to need a torch in order to light that up and actually see crays, because most of the holes you look in, you won't actually know they're there. Unfortunately for crays, they have an absolutely dead giveaway, which can be sticking out of holes or help you realise where they are a lot easier, and this is their long antennas that they have.
Caught something. Huh? You caught something.
Now, although most people will think Spearos are absolute savages, a lot of us actually like to get rid of whatever rubbish we find in the ocean, and I just found a squid jig, so I swam over to my float, took it onto my float to make sure it made its way out the ocean and didn't get stuck on a poor fish. We also clean up whatever other fishing jigs or fishing line that we may find. Now before this cray diving experience, my personal best for diving was 12 meters without any ear pain. So 12 meters is, you know, significantly deep in comparison to what we are diving here, but because this is a lot more physical than just free diving, it really takes it out of you. And what I also noticed on this day is having the extra weight on the weight belt meant that I wasn't floating on the surface as easily, so I could never actually fully stop kicking and resting. So you're just seeing Scotty looking all these nooks and crannies, and I'm just doing my absolute best that I can without a torch, because there's actually not much that I can see without a torch. But even without a torch, I can still spot this huge wobbegong. In New South Wales, you're not allowed to shoot, kill, capture, whatever, harm wobbegongs. They are on the protected species list, and they are typically a dead giveaway of where a nice cray hole may be, because they love crays.
There's a fat wobby here. Fat wobby over here.
Yeah, I want to get rid of him because there's a hole under there that's probably crazy, I'd say.
So Scotty braves it and heads down and goes to serve this wobby with an eviction notice to get him out of the area so we can get these crays. So Scotty's just encouraging the wobby to leave and evacuate the premises by hitting it with the side of the spear gun, just touching the sides of it and trying to just stir it up a little bit so it just wants to move on without harming it. Now that the wobby's moved on, Scotty's down there to get those crays behind where the wobby was hiding, and when you grab a cray, you should not grab it by the antennas because they will likely just snap off. You need to grab them properly by the antlers or by the body. And even though most people will think spearos are savages, most of us don't want to actually hurt and injure an animal unless we are taking it home with us. So here Scotty returns just with some antennas, unfortunately.
Damn it.
Do they eat crays?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Same with Ockies.
So my torchless ass headed down to where I thought maybe there'll be some crays and there's a little bit of light. So here I dive down and basically just scavenge around the rocks, and I see a set of antennas sticking out. So I look in and I go to grab the cray, and I just did not grab it by the body enough, and unfortunately just got one of the antennas.
Fuck! There's one over here. Grabbed his antenna, but right here, that triangle-y looking rock on the right hand side, in front of it from you.
So I pointed out to Jono where the cray was, and he swam down and he could not find exactly where I was trying to point out. So he swam back up, I went down and I showed him where it was, and then he went down with the torch, obviously because he could see a lot better than me, and he collected the cray that I found.
Nice. That is legal. Hey? That is legal, but we'll make sure. Did you want to have a go and get the crays out of this, Doc?
Is there some over there?
There's another 3 in there, I'd say.
I'll give it a crack.
It might be a bit stirred up, but you'll see them.
Do you want to show us where?
Yeah, I'll dive down them.
Being the good lad that Scotty is, he swam down to show me just the crack that he was talking about, where there was still at least a few more crays in. So they had already pulled maybe 3 crays from this hole, so they were quite stirred up at this stage. If you do spot a cray, they do have pretty bad eyesight, so what you should do is you should avoid touching their antennas, because they most likely will not know you are there until you touch their antennas. And also avoid shining the torch straight in their eyes, because that will also let them know that you are there. So here I have swum down to the ledge to the crack, and I had no idea where Scotty was talking about and just ran out of breath. So I headed back to the surface.
See him under there? That's torch, man.
Huh?
That's torch.
So I continued on with my torchless diving. Now, one thing to also note is, like, I can hold my breath on land for about 3 minutes, but when you're doing this physical exertion and basically hunting, it takes it out of you. And after about 20 or so seconds at about 6 meters, it was literally like pushing me to those limits where it was uncomfortable.
Maybe. That one I got was like bitten by a fucking spirit eater. Might be. You want to have a go? I'll go measuring.
Now here I was breathing up for my dive, and I did have an extra weight on my belt like I said earlier, and what I found was happening is every time I was about to go and take my inhale just before the dive, which obviously meant I had a little bit more of an exhale than usual, I would sink just that little bit and get water in my snorkel, fucking up my dive.
keep sucking in water just as I'm about to dive down.
Here's the lads bragging about some more crays that they caught. Just kidding. They're just talking about whether they think these crays are of size or not. Any crays that were definitely undersized, that they could definitely tell, they would throw back. Anything that was maybe close, they still took over to their floaty and measured them at the end of the day. So although I didn't have a torch on this day, I did have 2 people with me as company, which was great for me to be able to go and do some dives and try and like push past my limits and get comfortable with the environment. Obviously because I had dive buddies around in case anything did go wrong. So I made the most of that. So again, I can hold my breath on land for about 3 minutes, but when doing these dives, it was literally about 20 seconds and it felt like ages under there. And then it started to get uncomfortable. The mix between being in the open ocean, having the pressure around you, squashing down on you, and also the fact that you just have that physical exertion, and I didn't get to rest on the surface because of the extra weight. So here we are where we moved the wabbie again, and they had pulled maybe 4 or 5 crays out of here already. So I dove down and they didn't think there was any more crays left. I thought I'd just have a look, and I put my head in and I saw at least 2 or maybe 3 crays. Hard to see on the GoPro just because it's a little bit higher on my head than my eyeballs, but there was definitely crays down here. And of course again I ran out of breath, so I headed back to the surface.
Is there another one down there?
There's the blimp 2.
2 more?
Yeah, I broke one of the antennas off one. Yeah. I grabbed him by the head, and then it just slipped and got his antenna.
We ended up getting 1 more cray out of that hole before heading over to another spot. Now this spot is a well-known spot for these 2 guys, so obviously I'm not going to share the exact stuff on the screen of what it looks like, especially if you do know the area, but this was at about the 10 meter mark and it was still maybe an hour or so before high tide.
There's some down there?
Yeah, man, there's a few down there at least. Yeah, it's harder work than the last spot.
So here's my instructor Jono performing a perfect duck dive and heading down to roughly the 10 meter mark to go and get some of these crays. It's a really strange feeling just watching your mate dive down and disappear deep into the water, and you have no idea where they are, when they'll be back, if they'll be back. But thankfully, after the painstaking wait, Jono starts to reappear. And what does he have in his hand? He's got a fucking cray. Now it was my turn to head down to the bottom. So I dove to 12 meters before this previously, but that was like a PB. So diving down to this 10 meter mark and rummaging around really got uncomfortable very quickly. So I headed back to the surface in no time. Obviously I've blurred this on the screen for those that are local to the area to not give away the little honey hole of these guys.
Well, I found the cave.
Nice.
How deep's that, you reckon, Jono?
What is that, 9, 10 metres, something like that? I said this to you guys on your wave one, like, hunting and spearing in 10 metres is completely fucking different to freediving 10 metres.
Oh, yeah.
You guessed it, Jono's got another cray. So here I am diving again down to that roughly 10 meter mark, and now that I know roughly the spot that I was looking for, I could actually have a chance to look in some of the holes. But again, the pressure just got so overwhelming and that urge to breathe was just too much for me to bear that I headed back to the surface after maybe about 10 seconds on the bottom. On my third dive here, I was absolutely gassed after just treading water all day with the extra weight that I had on my weight belt. So again, I didn't have a successful run at the bottom with maybe another 10 or so second bottom time here. Now, although it was Jono's day off, he did have some stuff he had to go do, so he had to head home. So we swam on in, and on the way in, there was a school of bonito that had swum past right in front of Scotty, and Scotty managed to nail one. I have not eaten one of these yet, but apparently they are a really good eating fish.
got a body.
And here Scotty is doing what every Spiro has to do, even if they don't want to do it, but putting the fish out of its misery and then bleeding it as well. Bleeding the fish immediately makes a huge difference to the quality of the meat and the taste. If you didn't quite catch that, that was a let's go. A couple more of Jono and Scotty's mates had rocked up and we were heading out for round 2. Jono had headed home and I had some massive blisters on my feet because I had lost my booties before this day. So I was swimming with my flippers for hours without any booties and I just had mad blisters on my heels. So I went to the car to get some socks and we headed back out. Now after just saying howdy do to that fish, I went to go and swim off, and this float line that I had that came with this floaty is just absolutely horrible. It's not like a proper floating line and it just always gets tangled. It is so hard to wind up and everything. I've now upgraded and I strongly recommend doing this because it saves so much time, and here you can see as well, it would always just get caught on my knife, on my leg, or get caught on a weight on my belt because of how thin it is and how loose it was as well, and it just get tangled in absolutely everything. So here's the lads doing their dives, looking in all the nooks and crannies for crays and where they could possibly be. I still had no torch, so I was really just kind of hovering around for most of this, but I thought it'd be good for my endurance and experience anyway, so I hung around rather than heading home. I also capitalized on having just people around me and dive buddies and utilizing that opportunity to begin to dive deeper and try and get used to that uncomfortable feeling of being at the bottom, having that pressure, running out of breath and fighting that urge to breathe in a sensible manner with people around.
Seen any?
Yeah, I've got a keeper.
I can hear some.
There's a couple out here. I just had to move an urchin.
One of the other amazing things about being in the ocean all the time is just the different species of animals you get to witness, like this beautiful eagle ray. I'm pretty sure it's an eagle ray. Correct me in the comments if I am wrong. I'd also seen this fish and I knew I definitely wasn't going to shoot it, but I wanted to just go and check it out. So I encouraged him to get out of his hole a little bit just so I could get a better gaze at him. Now here we had made it over back to some more deeper kind of stuff on the other side, and I was just again practicing getting down to the bottom, getting comfortable with those feelings and just trying to push into the next level of that growth and that development. Doing breath training on land helps, but it definitely does not compare to what it's like actually being in the water and experiencing that pressure around you. Here one of the lads gets another cray. He spent a little while down there wrestling it, getting it out of its hole, and he was really running out of breath on his way up.
You've only just got him? I don't know.
Still tortureless, I just thought again I will go down and check out some of these little nooks and crannies down here, as there was a little bit better light than most of the other spots, so I thought I may have a fighting chance. But again, just being down here and that physical exertion of the whole day, I could not hold my breath long at all, so it's straight back to the surface. I am absolutely spent. I'm just walking back along the rocks. It's hard cray diving without a torch, as I've learnt, but it's been good practice, just like diving, equalising, getting depth, getting comfortable with shit viz. It's been good to get like that 10-ish metre mark with some breath hold and like just scavenge around down there, get comfortable with it, get used to not freaking out as you come up to the surface. For those of you watching, if you know where this is, don't drop it in the comments, don't let other people know. It's not that I don't want to share these places, because like the whole point of this channel is to share stuff with the new upcomers, with the noobs like myself, but just solely out of like, it's not that I don't want to share it, it's just solely out of respect for the people that have shown me these spots, these areas, and their little honey holes and whatnot. So if you do know where it is, just keep that excitement for yourself, or share it to other people in another way, but don't go dropping it in the comments like most people do. They're just out hard to see on this wet GoPro screen. On the right hand side of that island, oh, probably over there if I'm getting that right. 3 floats out there, and they're just diving like crazy still. It's very interesting, obviously very different than free diving, like getting down there and having to stick your hands in holes, and it's not as relaxing as free diving, but it's really good training overall. So like most of the good spots were like kind of 10 to 12 meters diving down. The biggest thing that I'm wrapped with about today is absolutely no ear pain on any of the dives, getting the equalization right, equalizing the mask as well, so that's not a pain in the ass, that's not full on my face. So yeah, even though it's not like new record depths, it's just about getting comfortable down there and doing it, like doing things properly. My mouth is so fucking salty. So many times when I was going for the breathe up, when I was about to take in my in breath to go down, I'd suck up water, but my mouth feels pretty crap. And then I had a plastic bottle of water tied to my float so I could stay hydrated, so I don't get dehydrated. And I wanted to just go take a big swig before when I got out the water, and somehow the salt water had made its way in there, so I just had a big mouthful of more salt water just to make things even better. But all in all, crack a day. Just gonna wait for these lads till they're done, then go get some food in the belly, some hydration, and it'll be lit. I think those guys are going to be a while, so I'm just going to rock hop along onto those rocks, and then I might swim back with them from there. Let's go. Now, I had never actually eaten lobster or crayfish before this day, and I was lucky enough to take 2 home that the guys gave me, even though technically I didn't pull any out of the hole myself. And they were the most delicious and sweet fish that I have ever had. They pretty much tasted like scallops, and I was just absolutely stoked with them. A huge shout out goes to Jono for inviting me along, and Scotty as well for just being nice, passing the torch around and showing me some things throughout this day. I had an absolute blast. Quite the washing machine out here. Very hard to not get water in your snorkel. Scotty was heading home, so I went to go jump back in the water with him, and I put my flippers on, and here I just have a nice little slip and tumble on the rocks. Shit, bro! I ended up jumping back in the water, swimming over towards the car park with Scotty, and I was able to take 2 of the crays home, and it was a delicious dinner for my partner and I. I hope you enjoyed the content and maybe even learnt a thing or two. I know there wasn't a heap of excitement, but with this channel I want to be real. I want to show all of the stuff, all of the shortcomings, all of the mistakes as well, not just the excitement. I've also just completed my line diving kit so I can do some line training, so there'll be more of that content very soon to come when I can get some dive buddies to head out with me and get some depth. If you enjoyed the content, please do some kind of interaction with the video, subscribe for heaps more content to come, and go and follow me on other social media platforms as well. I post a whole lot more short form content on those platforms with a whole lot more of my daily kind of stuff as well, including getting out diving multiple times a week. Obviously making these videos takes a lot of time, so these will not be out as frequently, but stay posted and I've got heaps more content on the other platforms. The links to the rest of my social media will be in the description. Thanks for watching, hopefully you learnt a thing or two, and let's get deep.